In light of OJ Simpson passing away, the Pro Football Hall of Fame announced that for the first time since his induction in 1985, they are going to redo his bust. Now, his bust will feature him wearing on his head his lucky stabbing hat. Welcome everybody to JG9 News, where we talk all things NFL all the time. I'm Jared Gayer, and I representing the 904 from the 602, and today we are talking about the running back that played predominantly for this team behind me right here, as well as the San Francisco 49ers. OJ Simpson, the Hall of Fame running back, passed away last week. 11,236 career rushing yards, 4-time rushing leader, 6-time Pro Bowler, 5-time first-team All-Pro, 1973 MVP, and the Offensive Player of the Year. The first player to run for 2,000 yards in a single season, and the only one to do it in a 14-game season. And he was inducted on the first ballot in 1985. However, obviously you cannot ignore the elephant in the room with OJ Simpson, and what his defining legacy is the fact that, in all likelihood, he was a murderer who killed 2 people. And with that in mind, there's been a lot of talk in light of his death about the Pro Football Hall of Fame. And should OJ Simpson be kicked out of the Hall of Fame? Does he have a spot in the Hall of Fame? Can you really separate the art from the artist? Can you separate the player from the person when it comes to OJ Simpson? This is a recent article from The Athletic that I found a bit interesting, and this is how it leads off. Why is OJ Simpson in the Pro Football Hall of Fame? Simpson's status as an honoree is controversial among fans, voters, and the media. Even some fellow Hall of Famers feel strongly that his bust should not be displayed alongside theirs. Separating the football player from a human being is a struggle for many. So that's really what I want to talk about today with this video. It's not about the legacy of OJ Simpson. It's not about how good he was as a player. It's not about how bad he was as a person. It's the idea of, should he be kicked out of the Hall of Fame? Because this is a debate that's been going on for a while now. It's been heightened in light of his death. I was going to have this video out on Thursday, but due to vocal issues, I was dealing with pneumonia, so was not able to get this out in time. That's why my voice is still not 100%. And why we have not had a whole lot of JG9 News vids lately. But I want to talk about this really quickly, because at the end of the day, you go down a very slippery slope if we start kicking guys out of the Hall of Fame. Obviously, you've got OJ Simpson, who probably did what he did. But at the end of the day, he was found not guilty. In the eyes of the justice system, he was found not guilty. Now, do I believe that he did it? Absolutely. I absolutely believe that he did it. I think the prosecution did a terrible job. I think Johnny Cochran was just a phenomenal defense lawyer. I think the glove defense was incredible. But the civil trial found that it was more likely than not that he did it. Now, civil trial, 51% of the evidence is what you need. Criminal trial, 99.99% of the evidence. You're innocent until proven guilty. It's basically like the NFL instant replay system. If you don't know the difference between civil and criminal trial, you're basically going in where you haven't made a ruling yet. And you're just trying to see, okay, which is the strongest case? That the play on the field was a catch or wasn't a catch. Criminal trial, you go in with the assumption that the call on the field was a catch, and now you need clear, conclusive, indisputable evidence to overturn it and make it not a catch. If there's even the slightest bit of evidence that says, you know what, there might be a chance that he caught this ball, you got to stick with the call on the field. And the call on the field is innocent until proven guilty, because that's the way the justice system works. So, look, OJ Simpson probably did it, but in the eyes of the justice system, in terms of a criminal trial, he was found innocent. So it is a slippery slope when we start kicking guys out of the Hall of Fame, especially because, again, in the eyes of the justice system, OJ Simpson didn't do it. On top of that, it sounds like OJ Simpson is the only bad actor in the Hall of Fame. There are plenty of guys that have done stuff that have been found guilty of stuff that are in the Hall of Fame. Look at Ray Lewis. He got fined by the NFL due to his suspicion in the murder in 2000. Lawrence Taylor arrested multiple times in his career. In 2010, he was arrested for raping a 16-year-old girl and had to register as a level 1 sex offender. He's in the Hall of Fame. Brett Favre stole millions of dollars from the state of Mississippi. Great quarterback, but he frauded the state of Mississippi millions of dollars, and he's not a good person. He's still in the Hall of Fame. Dan Hampton, great player, but handful of DWIs and operating vehicle while intoxicated charges against him, and he's still in the Hall of Fame. Jim Brown, I mean, how can you possibly keep him in the Hall of Fame and take OJ Simpson out when OJ, in the eyes of the justice system, didn't do it? And Jim Brown has a laundry list of stuff. The list goes on and on with Jim Brown. 1965, He raped a woman twice and struck her across the body. 1968, he was initially charged with assault with intent to commit murder after his girlfriend was barely breathing in his apartment. In 1971, he was accused of beating 2 women and throwing them down a flight of stairs. In 1985, he was initially charged with beating and raping a woman. In 1986, arrested and charged with assaulting his girlfriend. 1989, charged with some misdemeanors after making some terrorist threats against his wife and hitting her in the past. Some of these guys actually did stuff and were found guilty in the eyes of the law. And we're going to kick someone out who wasn't found guilty? That seems pretty hypocritical, and it seems like we're going down a very, very dangerous path and a slippery slope. Do we want to be having this debate about what crimes are worse than others? Because that's what we do if we kick OJ Simpson out of the Hall of Fame. Because then we would have to be putting things on a scale, and I'm really not sure we want to do that and go down that path. Because what happens if there's another Hall of Famer that kills someone, but not in a murder? Let's say they're driving while drunk, or just by complete accident, or self-defense. Do we really want to be judging that and going over the finer details? I don't think we want to do that. Now, you might be saying, what crimes can a player commit and be kicked out of the Hall of Fame? I think most would agree that if you're going to kick players out of the Hall of Fame, once they're in, that murder has to be at the top of the list. If you're going to commit a crime, murder is the worst one to commit, obviously. But again, in the eyes of the justice system, he didn't do it. And I'm not sure you can kick a guy out that, in the eyes of the justice system, again, was found to be innocent. Plus, if you're going to kick guys out, who gets to decide? Is it a unanimous vote from the writers? Is it a majority of the vote, 75% of the vote? Is it Commissioner Goodell? Is it the president of the Hall of Fame? Who gets to decide? Who gets to have this power? And if it's one person to have this power, this seems like a lot of power that shouldn't really be given to someone, because the voters bring you into the Hall of Fame and one guy can just kick you out. That doesn't seem very fair. That doesn't seem very democratic. Doesn't seem like a very fair system that you would have. On top of that, the Hall of Fame website and the mission statement, it says absolutely nothing about character clause. There's nothing about good character in there. It's about football. Literally, the very first line, if you look at the About Us section for the Hall of Fame, is "This is football heaven." The Hall of Fame is a 501c3 non-for-profit educational institution guided by its mission to honor the greatest of the game, preserve its history, promote its values, and celebrate excellence together. Now, you could argue promote its values, but there's nothing on there in the About Us section that has anything about values. So what are the values? They're not really well defined. And again, how can you have values and kick OJ Simpson out for not murdering someone if we're going off the justice system again and going off of that ruling, and leave guys like Lawrence Taylor and Jim Brown in? You just can't. You just can't do it. You can't define it. You can't explain it in a logical way without sounding like a massive hypocrite. Now, you don't have to make OJ Simpson the face of the Hall of Fame. You don't have to promote him. You don't have to do anything like that. You don't have to dedicate an exhibit to him. Trust me, when I went to the Hall of Fame, there was no mention of OJ Simpson when I went in 2022. You just saw his bust if you wanted to, and that was it. He was not at the dinner. That was the night before. He did not participate in the gauntlet, which a lot of Hall of Famers did. He was not at the ceremony. I'm not sure he was invited. Maybe he was and he turned it down. I'm not sure. But you don't have to make OJ a prominent part, but once you're in, you're in. You can choose how you want to honor him once he's in, but you can't rewrite history. I'm a big proponent against rewriting history. You put him in because he's one of the greats. You can't take him out now and pretend that it never happened, that he wasn't one of the greats. It's almost like what happens with the 90s on 9 on SiriusXM. If you have a SiriusXM subscription, you might know what I'm talking about regarding R. Kelly. Now, R. Kelly is a horrible person. They've stopped playing his music on 90s on 9, which I have no problem with. R. Kelly, despicable person. I have no problem refusing to acknowledge that he exists. Having said that, there are times over the weekend that they do this thing called the Back in the Day Replay Countdown. And the Back in the Day Replay Countdown has the top 30 songs on the Billboard Hot 100 from a particular week in the 90s. So if it was this week, it would be this week in 1993, the top 30 songs on the Billboard Hot 100. R. Kelly, if there's a song on the top 30 on that countdown, they just skip over it. They don't acknowledge it. They don't play it. They don't do anything like that. Sometimes they'll play a completely different song. I once heard a time that they only had 29 songs because they took out an R. Kelly song. So they just put in a completely different song that was not on the top 30. We're rewriting history that way. We're refusing to acknowledge that it happened. And I'm not crazy about that. I don't like doing that. Again, I'm not saying you could play R. Kelly music all the time. I'm not saying that. But at least for those countdowns, he earned the right to be on that countdown by having a top 30 hit in that particular week. And if you're going to be authentic to the history of the Billboard charts, which is the whole purpose of that countdown, then you have to play a song. And that's how I view OJ Simpson. No, he was not a good person by any stretch of the imagination. Yes, he probably did it, even though, again, the justice system's eyes, he didn't. But he probably did it. Not a good person. Even if he didn't do it, he still had to serve a lengthy jail sentence in the 2000s and 2010s for other crimes that he did. So, not the best of people, obviously. But if we put him in the Hall of Fame because of his actions on the field, we can't take him out. We just can't take him out without having it go down an entire rabbit hole that I'm not sure we want to go down. Now, you might be saying, what does this mean for guys like Jim Tyrer and Darren Sharper? Jim Tyrer killed his wife. Darren Sharper raped a woman. They are not in the Hall of Fame. Now, what does this mean for them? Am I saying they should be in the Hall of Fame? No. Now, there's a difference. I have a major difference between kicking someone out of the Hall of Fame and not inducting someone who was already not in. Jim Tyrer would be in if he didn't do that. Darren Sharper would be in if he didn't do that. But because they did, they're never getting in the Hall of Fame, and understandably and rightfully so. I have no problem not inducting someone into the Hall of Fame. But once you're in, you're in. Once you're in, you cannot get kicked out. It is a lifetime appointment. You are in the halls of Canton, Ohio forever, regardless of what happens next. I have no problem not letting someone in for doing heinous stuff off the field. But once you get in the Hall of Fame, you go down a very bad and slippery slope if we start taking guys out, especially if they did not do it in the eyes of the law. And especially because we kick OJ Simpson out, we got to start thinking about kicking other guys out. Jim Brown, Lawrence Taylor, Brett Favre, and then where do we draw the line? What crimes are worthy getting kicked out? What crimes are not worthy getting kicked out? And I don't think we want to go down that hole. I really don't think we want to go down that path. But what are your thoughts on OJ Simpson? Do you think he should be kicked out of the Hall of Fame? Do you think he should be in permanently? Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. What is your legacy of OJ Simpson? Do you remember him as a football player or as a murderer? Do you think he did it? If you remember that trial from 1994, 1995, let me know all your thoughts in the comments down below. And that's going to do for this episode of JJ9 News. Be sure you like and subscribe. It helps the channel out a lot. And be sure to check my main channel, JaguarGamer9, where we talk all things NFL history all the time. Again, my voice not the strongest just because I'm dealing with ammonia, but want to get this video out. And we're going to power through. We're going to power through as best we can. Until next time, JaguarGamer9 signing off. And as always, go Jags.